what more can we do with the breath? What else is humanly possible? How do we apply breath work to not just peak performance, not just optimum health, but ultimate potential?
We are here with Dan Brule, the godfather of breathwork, and some might say the Bruce Lee of breathwork. I am very, very excited because Dan has had a tremendous impact in the world of health, stress relief, and a huge impact on Tony Robbins himself as well, because he is actually the man who taught Tony Robbins about breathwork, or actually allow him to dive deeper into breathwork. Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure, Bogdan.
So tell us a bit about, the origin story. How did you become the man you are today?
Yeah, well, it always doesn't look like a choice, It seems like something that was already set, that was already designed. I mean, from early childhood, Catholic school, my first awakening to the breath when the priest came into kindergarten. And I was in Catholic school, the nuns were dressed, and the priest, for a little kid, they seemed like, God, God themselves. And, um, and he talked about Genesis, the book in the Bible of Genesis, and how God took the dust of the earth and formed the body of man and breathed into the nostrils of man the breath of life. Wow. I mean, I don't know, something about that just excited me to no end. And I think I got a little too animated. I don't have much memories of it, but I can remember the nun tapping me on my head, trying to calm me down, and the priest pushing on my shoulders, trying to get me to sit back in my chair. It just lit something up in me. I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't excited. Like, what? God is breathing into us. Like, wow, wow. And and then I got the wind knocked out of me growing up more times than I could possibly count. I had several near drowning experiences. My first job was an x ray technician. One of the easiest job x rays to take is a chest x ray. So I was telling people, take in a deep breath, hold it, click, and I take their picture. And it seemed as if the breath just started speaking to me. I could see that the person's relationship to their body, their relationship to life was being reflected and expressed in their relationship to the breath. And and I resuscitated someone. It was a Saturday seminar. I saw the notice on the bulletin board in the hospital, and so I thought, well, heck, doesn't everybody want to learn how to do CPR? God. So I was the only one there from the X-ray department on Saturday.
Mm,
I was quite surprised. Like, wow, doesn't everybody want to learn this stuff?
great.
And 2 weeks later, I was up in the ICU intensive care unit with my portable X-ray machine, and I was called up there to take a chest X-ray. And while I was putting the plate under the guy and preparing him, he basically flatlined. He just died. His heart stopped beating. His pupils became fixed and dilated. He turned this ashen, death, deathly gray look.
Right.
And so, wow, I immediately just, well, here comes my training. Here's the first one. I pulled his neck back. I blew into him a couple of times. I pounded on his chest 5 times. And then he blinked and woke up. It was a freaking miracle. I mean, God, I had goosebumps. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I was in this ecstatic state for several days. And I mean, what a miracle. You come upon somebody who's clinically dead and you breathe into them and they come to life. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that every day of their life? It was so utterly fulfilling. And when you love what you do, the universe gives you opportunities to do it. I'd be at the beach, someone would drown. I'm on an airplane, someone has a heart attack. I'm in a restaurant, someone chokes on food. I started to think, hey, look, maybe I'm bad luck. Stay away from me because people would drop like flies around me, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, uh, and then I went into the military, and and then I went into deep sea diving and special operations. So there I was again, practicing breath holding, doing underwater rescue, working in a recompression chamber, mixing gases, helium and nitrogen for oxygen for deep sea diving. And I just couldn't escape it. I just couldn't. The, the spirit of breath just kept grabbing me by the scruff of my neck and sticking my nose in situations where the breath was needed or being called. And so when I got out of the military, I didn't know quite what to do. I was looking at the university. I had 10 years of VA benefits. It was Vietnam era. So when I got out of the military, I had 10 years of educational benefits coming to me. So I decided, well, it looks like I'm going to live in the university community for the next 10 years and drink up all of my VA benefits. So I happened to be looking around in the bookstore at the university, wondering what courses to take, and I saw this book, Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes. And I had found that book just as I got discharged from the Navy. And Ken Keyes had a thing called the Living Love Center and the Living Love Way. And and he kind of westernized a lot of the Eastern spiritual philosophy and teachings. He kind of put it in a Western form that my mind was able to kind
Right.
of like.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I took that course. It was by Milton Young. He became my mentor. I said, well, whoever's using this book, I had found that book just as I got out of the military. And I said, well, whoever's using this book in a university course, I couldn't believe it. So he became my mentor. His name was Milton Young. And one day we were heading into class. I saw him in the parking lot, and he was giddy. He was like floating. He was in this weird, ecstatic, kind of radiant state that I'm going, Milton, you look a little weird today. And he goes, oh, I was just rebirthed. He said, it's a breathing thing. You'll probably like it. And so I said, hell yeah. Tell me more. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, you go learn it, write me a paper on it, and I'll give you 6 credits. And
Mm.
that was half of a semester to qualify as a full-time student. So I thought, heck yeah. So I did my first rebirthing session with a woman named Annabelle Booten. Really weird lady. I would never have been in the same room with this person. She had these thick Coke bottle glasses that made her eyes look like gigantic, and she smoked when she's talking about breathing. I went, what a weird. What about?
Well, that's breathing too. I mean,
Yeah, you can see the air when you smoke. It's a substitute for inner fire. Anyway, so she said, okay, just breathe like this. And I'm going, well, that's it. Okay, so I started. Well, hey, within 15 minutes, my body was electric. All of the stress, all the post traumatic stress, all this trauma I had accumulated in my life just fell off me like skin off a snake. My perception, the doors of my perception opened. I felt like I was in a new body. The sky was bluer than I'd ever seen. I was in love with everything and everybody. And I thought, oh my God, everybody in the world needs to feel this and learn this. And so I've been teaching it ever since. It's been, I was 1976. Here I am 50 something years later, and I'm still at it, man.
you know what? I love this so much, and especially, like every single aspect of your life had to do with breath. Even your work on the ocean. I mean, the ocean is breathing all the time. On this, like above the surface, you have the wind, and below it, you have this being, this entity that's breathing, that's moving, that's alive. Fascinating, fascinating. Like it's exactly like you said. It's not that you really had a choice. You kind of came with this mission, and it was like, hey, listen, this is what you're meant to do. Do
Yeah.
it. It's
And
gonna
the
be fun.
ocean is breathing. The edges of the ocean are sliding up and down the beaches. Everything in the universe is breathing. I mean, the
Yep.
Big Bang, there's going to be a big crunch in another billion years, and then there'll be another Big Bang. It's like existence itself is breathing. The
Yep.
universe is breathing. And and so, yeah, I think it's the key. It's a universal theology is impossible. You're never going to get Muslims and Jews and Christians and Buddhists all to agree on a universal theology, but a universal experience is not only possible, it's necessary. And
Right.
I think that universal experience is breathing. And every religion, every spiritual tradition comes around to the breath at some point or along the way. And so, why not just start there and see where it takes you? Breathing opens up people's hearts. It opens up the connection between the body and the mind. The breath is the connection, the bridge between the body and the mind, between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. We're all sucking off the same bubble of air on this planet, literally. So
Right.
the breath literally connects us. Some of the air, some of the molecules of air that are circulating in my body once circulated in the body of Jesus, Moses, Mohammed, Caesar, literally the Buddha. So it does connect us. It connects us to each other. It connects us to our source, and that's what's needed, I think, in the world. We have to overcome differences and conflict, and I'll tell you, people who breathe together connect in a very deep way that kind of it overshadows any surface differences, and that's where I'm at now. I'm working uh, with teams to create like group flow. It's pretty amazing when teams breathe together, literally synchronize their breath, and you it, it, it it creates a certain powerful connection that's almost mind-boggling, and it shouldn't surprise us because people who pray together, for example, I was raised Catholic, and we repeat these prayers, the whole congregation: Hail Mary, full of
Right.
grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed art thou, Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for sinners now and then. And so, without realizing, and when people are praying together, they're synchronizing their breath. And in boot
Hmm.
camp, when I was in the military, right, the typical drill sergeant, you know, I can't hear you. Yes, sir. I still can't hear you. Yes, sir. Every guy is taking a breath at the same time, exhaling at the same time, and it
Yep.
creates a certain energetic bond that that I think we overlook and underestimate the power
And
of people breathing together.
one of the things that I loved before, getting in touch with Wing Chun, and Wing Chun, we were doing a bit of breathing exercises, but before that, I was doing karate. And the thing that I loved in karate the most was the ki, right? The energy amplifier, right? So it's like you have this whole gym of people who are like, oh yeah, at the same time. And it's just that it's not just amplifying your energy, but it's like thinking about it now, it creates a third entity, the entity of the group, and you can pull energy from that as well.
Oh, definitely. I was at the end of my rope, in deep sea diving, special operations training. It was grueling. 36 of us started, six of us finished after 6 months. And I was at the end of my rope one day. They have what's called a false peak experience. Um, and so, we were running, for example, we run every day 3 miles, every day 3 miles. And then one day they come out and they go, today we're running 10 miles. And they will
Right.
look at everybody. And if you go, oh, you're going to have a horrible day because they're going to be guys right on you. What they want you to go is, yippee, why not 20?
Yeah.
So, so that day it was like, uh-oh. And, you try to hide it, but holy shit, 10 miles? Okay. And so we were going, and we get through 3 miles, and you in the call it self degrading inner talk, like performance degrading inner talk. I don't know if I can make it. God, I feel really tired. These are not the things you want to be telling yourself at a time like that. Um, and so, anyway, that my mind was going there, and sure enough, I'm falling behind and falling behind. And one of the guys, uh, Peter Kane, I'll love him forever. He saw that I was struggling, and he deliberately dropped back, and he got on the side of me. And because I was a medical person, people called me Doc. So he said, "Hey, Doc, let's breathe together." I'm going to breathe together. So we started breathing in rhythm to our footsteps. And his presence and my focus on the breathing changed everything. I mean, my self talk disappeared, my chemical state changed, my energetic state changed. His presence, plus my focus on the breath, and this universal principle of rhythmic breathing. We forget the power. You look in nature, the rhythms, the cycles, the seasons, the tide, day and night. There's something universal about rhythm.
Yep.
And so when you put your breath into a rhythm, well, within a very short time, I was literally trying to step on the heels of Youngblood. That was the guy who was leading the running that day. I was deliberately right behind him, deliberately trying to hit his heels with my feet so he would know that I was right there with him, and there was no fucking way he was going to lose me. And and so then we're going, and now I'm counting down. Okay, 5 more miles, 4 more miles, 3 more miles. I can do this. I can do this. 2 more miles. Okay, 1 more mile. I can do this. No, no, no. There's the finish line. Here I'm coming to it. And then when you got to the end of 10 miles, they said 1 more mile. Nobody was prepared for that. It's called a false peak. We had
Yep.
psyched ourselves up to make that last mile, and then they throw 1 more mile on you. We lost half of the guys that day, maybe 2/3 of the course didn't make it that day. And I was one of the few who just somehow, stubbornness, stupidity, momentum, whatever it was, I managed to do that 11 miles. And there was just a small group of us who were still breathing at the end
Yeah.
of that day.
That is so cool. Yeah, because it's like you set yourself, it's easy, you set that goal, but then you realize you have to do another one, and it's a huge mental expansion
Yeah.
to do that. Beautiful. Dan, could you share an exercise, or could we do an exercise together
Yeah.
that would de-stress everyone?
Yeah, it's I love it. It's hard to escape any place I'm at without doing some breathing. So uh, let me give you my basic understanding in a nutshell and the practices, right? So there are two aspects of breath work, like yin and yang aspect, which is I'm already breathing. I don't need to breathe. What I need to do is tune into my breath. Like the Buddha, become a witness to my breathing, merge with the breath, become absorbed in the process and the practice of breath in a very Zen like way so that everything else disappears and there's not even me breathing the breath, there's just breathing happening and we're absorbed in that practice. So we call that breath awareness, breath watching. It's a mindfulness practice. It's meditation. So there's no way to get around meditation, I think, because the more aware I become of my breath, the more aware I become of everything. The more conscious I am of my breathing, the more conscious I become, period, in general. Conscious of my posture, conscious of the effect my words have, conscious of my environment. And so breath awareness leads to greater awareness, internal awareness as well as external awareness. So that's the first and most fundamental practice where don't have to do anything. Just close your eyes. And how do you know you're breathing? What movements, what sensations, what feelings, what sounds tell you you're breathing and where are they? So I go right to the tip of my nose. And so if you focus there, you can feel the sensations of air passing through your nose. and you want to tune into them. There are details in the breathing that you've never observed. And this is an opportunity to catch some of those subtle details that are like a doorway, like a key to a new reality, a new consciousness, but they're very subtle. So we tune in to the subtle sensations of the air coming into the nostrils and out of the nostrils. And you can almost feel the hairs, the tiny hairs, bending in the wind when you inhale and bending the other way. The air is warmer coming out and it's a little cooler coming in. So we're looking for little details like that, not thinking about them, but experiencing them directly, coming into the present moment by using the actual present moment sensations of each inhale and each exhale. And then take your awareness a little deeper into the nasal passages, maybe up to the bridge of the nose, and sense the breath from that area in the bridge of the nose, deeper into the nasal passages, and experience the breathing in and out from that place. And then go further up into your sinuses, in your skull. See if you can experience the breathing from that vantage point. I call it a touch point on the breath. The breath is coming in the nose, it's going into the nasal passages, it's flowing and spiraling through the sinuses. And then see if you can pick up the breath in your throat, the sensations, any subtle sounds of the breath moving and passing through the throat. And maybe just work with your awareness through those touch points, tip of the nose, bridge of the nose, sinuses, throat, and create a little loop of breath and energy and awareness, a little circle there. Tip of the nose, bridge of the nose, sinuses, throat. Focusing and tuning into the breathing from those different touch points. And then at some point, become alive and conscious of the movement in your upper chest, under your collarbones, and pick up the sensations of breath there and enjoy them and be curious about them. And then follow the breath deeper into your lower lungs and your lower ribs. And feel the side to side expansion of your ribs when you begin to focus on the breath as it's getting in the lower part of the lungs. And help it expand. This is where the second aspect of breath work comes in, and that is conscious breathing. Now you're cooperating with the breath. You're giving space for the breath. As the breath comes in, you open around it so it doesn't meet any resistance. And as the breath goes out, you relax and let go so you're not holding on to any of it, blocking any of it. And then start to turn your breath up like volume on a stereo. Just notch it up a little bit so the breaths start to get bigger, more alive, fuller. And now you can start to feel a greater expansion in the lower chest, in the middle chest, in the upper chest. And then you want to invite some awareness down into the floor of the pelvis, in the dantian, all the way to the perineum, and begin to invite the breath and even send the breath into the floor of the pelvis. So you feel this expansion and you're sending the breath very deep to the very bottom of your torso, to your tailbone and your perineum. And with every breath, you're touching the floor of the pelvis with that inhale. And you're inviting that expansion. And then allow the breath to go further so that you're breathing into every cell of your body. It goes beyond the lungs. And you imagine it with each cell is like a lung, and each cell in your body expands and relaxes as you breathe. And start to make your breath fuller, bigger, deeper. So it feels like your whole body is breathing. Your bones are breathing, your organs are breathing. Get the breath into your joints, into every muscle. into your fingertips, to the soles of your feet, because that's already happening. The breath we breathe is going to every cell in our body. Getting the air in and out of our lungs is the most superficial level of breathing on the physical level. The next level is that breath traveling from the lungs to the blood. The blood takes it to everywhere in the body, and the final destination where genuine respiration occurs is on the cellular level. We want to experience that if we can. Experience the breath with your whole body, from every cell in your body. And we can go beyond that, beyond the borders of the body. We have an energy body, and that's a bubble that's expanding and relaxing with every breath also. And with this meditation, it can become a cosmic breath where you're sort of growing. I imagine like a little person in my heart pushing on the roof, pushing on the walls, pushing on the ceiling. And with every breath, growing my heart and growing the space around my heart until it includes the whole world, until I can hold the planet in my arms like someone would hold an infant and breathe love and peace into the whole world. We can make a difference with this. A heartfelt intention powered by the breath, can heal us and it can heal the world. So we have to discover the breath as this amazing power that we've overlooked, that we've underestimated, and begin to develop a real relationship with it and look at the magic we can do with it. And don't be afraid to have some outrageous dream about what's possible. Someone once told me if no one's laughing at your dream ain't big enough. So if you had all the power in the universe, if you had all the energy, if you could connect to the wisdom of the intelligence of life, of the power of life, what would you do with it? What would you focus on? What kind of energy do you want to fill yourself with? What kind of energy do you want to send out into the world? Invent a breathing technique where you bring that to life as a meditation, as a visualization. Use affirmations. Put your heart, your body, your mind, your soul into every breath, and the universe wakes up and takes notice, and it supports you.
Dan, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I've never done anything as misbranded as your work. Here's what I mean. First of all, it's not work because you call it breath work. There's no work here.
Yeah.
And number two, breath is just, I think, like a third or like a very small part of it. It's not even breath work. What you're doing is you're awakening people's power. You're amplifying their energy through the roof, basically.
Yeah, I think there's no difference between energy and consciousness. I
Yeah.
mean, the most spiritual people I've ever met have been the most conscious people I've ever met. The most conscious people I've ever met have been the most spiritual people I've ever met. And consciousness and breath, those are the two most fundamental aspects of us, the two most powerful elements. And when you bring them together, well, let's see what's possible. That's my game.
So I generally know when my energy's going up because I tend to twitch my like, and my fingers was twitching as well. And when you said like go higher, go through that ceiling, that's literally it. Like you're amplifying people's not just energy, but yeah, it's what it feels like. And we love people in the comments to share how they felt doing this. But it's an expansion. It's a huge expansion and connection to, yeah, to your greatness and life's greatness in many ways.
And the next or the real step in breath work is the purification aspect. I mean, I call it spiritual purification,
Right.
psychic detoxing, emotional detoxing, all of the limited thoughts and beliefs that we've accumulated through life, all the shocks and traumas that have left a residue in our system that block subtle energy, that interfere with our creativity, that get in the way of our relationships, of our success, you know,
Yeah.
and that stuff needs to be purged from our system. It's locked in the body. It's trapped in the nervous system, and so we use very powerful breathing techniques to purge and clear and burn away all that dross, all that heavy conditioning and limited programming and negative beliefs and conflicting thoughts, and just clear the system of that so we can return to something more pure, something more original, something more essential, and then come from that place. You know, for the first few years of our life, we're given programs that limit who we are.
Yeah.
And by the time our cognitive centers come online and we think we're thinking for ourselves, we're already thinking with programs that were given to us, that we swallowed. And who would we be and what would be possible if we had not been given those negative programmings? And so breathwork is a way to kind of go back and clear away and return to some original place and then move from there.
I
And
love that.
that's why the technique was called rebirthing. People literally remembered and re experienced their birth, not in words, but in impressions and feelings. Feelings of suffocation, feelings of having to struggle,
Yeah.
getting things done to you that you didn't want, not receiving things that you needed, and straightening your spine, slapping you, shaking you, sticking things up your nose. I mean, most people, the trauma of birth shuts down so many of our faculties. It's like when we're born, all of the centers come online at the same time.
Hmm.
You know, it's like you got your air conditioner on, you got your heater on, you got the toaster, you got the washing machine, and then you pull the main switch of your house and you blow a fuse because you have to shut all that stuff off, turn on the electricity, and then start turning those things on one at a time. Otherwise, you're going to short circuit. And that's what happened to us at birth. We didn't have any option. All those systems came on at the same time. And that first breath we took, it was like fire. It burned. We had never felt air in our lungs. We had warm fluid. And so our second breath wasn't as big as our first breath. And we've been afraid to breathe ever since. And that's how
Mm.
they protect themselves from pain. How do you protect yourself from pain? You tighten yourself up and you hold your breath, and then you can resist. But what if the pain is in you? It, it, the breath holding, and most people hold their breath 1,000 times a day and don't even realize it. Putting a key in a door, getting up from a
Right.
chair,
Yeah.
trying to remember something, turning their head and backing up a car. And for moments, they're just locking up the breath. And we have an ancient part of our nervous system, this lizard brain. It's not even in the brain, it's in the brain stem. And it monitors every breath we take. And it regulates our breathing, that lizard brain in us. And so if I go through the day, I'll exaggerate. If I go through the day breathing like that, gasping short breaths, which is on one level what a lot of people are doing, not dramatically, but on
Right.
some low degree. You're sending an emergency signal to that brain with every one of those rushed, gasped breaths. And every time you hold your breath, that's an emergency signal. Think about an antelope who's chomping in the grass out in the wild, and there's a noise in the bushes. Crump, crump. That freeze reaction
Yeah.
is an emergency signal. And so that poor lizard
Interesting.
brain, you're sending information to it with every breath you take. Your unconscious breathing habits are keeping that poor lizard brain constantly afraid. So, what we need to do is we need to start to very consciously, and here's the first conscious breathing exercise that I teach. So, we have breath awareness, we have conscious breathing, the two wings that help us fly with breath mastery. So the first conscious breathing technique isn't a technique at all. It's a natural reflex. It's a natural body response. And that is a sigh of relief. A sigh of relief. Midwest Medical Center, Northwestern Medical Center did a study. Now it's probably 10, 15 years old on the sigh. And what they realized was that the average person takes a sigh about every 5 minutes or about 12 times an hour. And they had to define the sigh. We experience a sigh, that's everyone recognizes that, but you can't measure that. And scientists and medical people need to measure shit. And so they define the sigh as an inhale, which is twice as big as your average breath. An
Mhm.
inhale with twice the volume as your tidal volume. So nature makes us take a breath that's twice as big as normal about every 5 minutes. And that's what that extra stretch, that's what produces what we experience as the sigh. And the medical people understand that in this way, that if we didn't exaggerate our breathing regularly, we would gradually lose our respiratory capacity. Nature couldn't trust us to remind ourselves to take a big breath and expand those alveoli,
Yeah.
those little microscopic air sacs at the end of the bronchial tree regularly. And so nature makes us do that. And I bet you anyone listening has noticed that that happens. Once in a while, you're not thinking about it, but you can't help but notice this
Yeah.
big breath comes out of nowhere and it's effortless and it feels so good. When that happens, you need to catch it. You need to copy it. You need to duplicate it and you need to deliver it to yourself regularly on purpose. And you're going to move from survival level up to something else, because that once every 5 minutes, that's enough to survive. So my feeling is breathing is like the pilot light in an oven. you know it keeps you alive, but you can't cook anything with it. So you gotta turn up the breath, just like we had these old I had a 59 Chevy, and driving it in the city back and forth, stop and go. Once in a while you had to get out on the highway, pedal to the metal, clean out the carburetor, and the car
Yeah.
ran so better. We need to do that with our breath regularly.
And
Otherwise we're
it,
going to
it
lose a lot.
it's so interesting that we have so many things backwards, because the moment you sigh, and like my wife's like, why did you sigh? Is there something wrong?
Am
Are
I
you
bored?
upset? Yeah.
I'm tired. No, it feels good. I'm alive.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And
Hey,
Dan,
but
thank you
that's it.
so
Look
much.
at that. We have been taught to suppress yawning. That's the second
Yeah.
exercise I
Yeah.
teach. So, see, a sigh of relief isn't a breathing technique, but when you do it consciously, it becomes a very powerful breathing technique. But it's
Hmm.
a natural response. The body already knows how to do it. Nobody has to teach you. You just have to squeeze more juice out of it when it happens. The second thing is a yawn. And that's, neuroscientists cannot find any single activity that lights up more varied, important parts of the brain at the same time as a simple yawn. They still haven't figured out what, and everybody yawns. Lizards yawn, seashells yawn, mollusks, clams, everything yawns. That can't be an accident of nature. That can't be a coincidence. That's an invitation. That's an opportunity for us to take part in our own nature. And so I teach conscious yawning. Deliberately trigger the yawning reflex. And everybody listening, do it right now. Make yourself yawn. Wiggle your jaw. Do what you have to do. And then something's going to open out, and then breathe in and out through that opening. Don't freeze on the yawn. That's what most people do. And they hold their breath when they yawn. No, the yawn opens up little channels in your throat. That's a time to flow the breath. So breathe in and out while the yawn is happening.
That is so cool.
Um, oh, it
And it's
is. And
contagious. Like
it
we,
is.
we
But there's
yeah.
something cool. the contagious nature of yawning. Listen, I'm obsessed about this shit, so I don't have an off button, but there's a reason for that because there's a little body in the brain called the precuneus, and the
Mm-hmm.
precuneus seems to be the central place that's associated with yawning. Well, you know what? The precuneus is also associated with empathy. And so
Mm.
sociopaths, psychopaths do not share the tendency to yawn when other people yawn. For them, yawning is not contagious. Why? They lack empathy. So at this
Interesting.
point in a live seminar, I usually go around the room and I say, "Who's not yawning right now?" And the closer
That
you
is so
are to
funny.
someone, the more contagious yawning is. Your
Yeah.
dog yawns, you yawn. You yawn, your dog yawns, your wife yawns. So it's magical stuff, and it's very practical. And thank God, science is catching up with the yogis' intuitions of and the ancient warriors and mystics and
Yeah.
masters that now we're getting real scientific evidence to make sense out of some of these ancient practices. And thank God, because some people need that. I've never
Yep.
needed it. I don't give a damn if there's a reason for it, if there's proof for it, if there's a scientific study to validate it. I know myself. I know how I feel. I can see the results it has on people. But now the science is catching up, so more people are joining. And breathwork has become the leading trend in wellness globally, going on a decade already, and it's continuing to grow and expand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can feel why. It's very visceral. Uh, Dan, what is one question that you've never been asked on a podcast that you wish you would be asked? Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the episode. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're making more than six figures and you want to collapse time between where you are right now and your goals, you want to scale your business with a lot more freedom, a lot more fun, a lot more joy from this experience. And like I mentioned, do it faster. I have something that will help. Just like I did my clients. For example, Yoshwin was actually afraid to grow his $120 million a year business because he was afraid he was going to make a mistake that would cost him millions. I quickly got him unstuck and well on his way to doubling the business. Another example, Jessica, she was making 10K a month, but she was stressed out, overwhelmed, overworked, close to burnout, and she was actually kind of hating her business. She quickly scaled to 25K a month while actually working less and having more fun in the business. And I do it through my Warrior Shaman system. If you'd like to learn more about how this system can help you achieve your goals, like I mentioned, with more freedom, fun, and just less grind, less hustle, there's a link below where you can learn more. Now let's get back to the episode.
What more can we do with the breath? What else is humanly possible? What's the what's the ultimate? What's the how do we apply breath work to not just peak performance, not just optimum health, but ultimate potential? Where's the groundbreaking there? Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do we link breath work to the evolution of humankind? How is what part does breath play in the raising of the energy on the planet, uh, and in our own personal evolution, and in planetary and human evolution? Where's the breath in there? What how do we get into that game with the breath?
Beautiful. So, assuming that I've asked this genius question that I would have never tapped into, what would be your answer then?
I heard it's an African saying, but I didn't know where it came from. But recently, I heard it's an African saying that if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone.
Alone. Mm.
So we need to be practicing on our own and then getting together and sharing notes with each other. And then breathing in small groups, breathing in big groups. Um, we need to develop a wider repertoire of breathing patterns that we're comfortable with. I
Right.
mean, we know, like on the realm of the spectrum, our visual capacities, we only catch a tiny small spectrum of that whole spectrum. And so, how do we, if we could grow that spectrum on the level of vision, we'd start to see things the cat sees. We'd start to see infrared. And that would naturally support our growth, our evolution, our performance, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there's a range in breathing that's similar to that. And most people are locked into a narrow little range. And when they get outside of it one way or outside of it the other way, they get uncomfortable. And so they run for shelter back into their comfortable little zone. So that's why the Wim Hof technique, maybe a lot of people it's hard not to know about Wim Hof
Right.
if you've ever Googled the word breathing. Um, he teaches what is basic. It's an ancient technique. He didn't invent it, but he gave it his own name. Literally, his name is Hof. Called it the Hof method, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a Taoist practice. It's a Tumno. It's Tibetans practice this. Buddhists practice this. Confucius practice it. Lao Tse practice it. This isn't new stuff, but every now and then you need a new package for people to get it, right? So, hyperventilation, when you hyperventilate, you produce a whole package of reactions in your system: biological, chemical, physiological, emotional, psychological. And so, if you can get comfortable with that, you grow, you
Mm-hmm.
heal. Most people cannot get comfortable with all the feelings of hyperventilation. And they have a lot of medical knowledge that says, I don't want to get comfortable with this because this is dangerous. This is bad. This is no good. Don't do it. Don't do it. But
Right.
getting comfortable with hyperventilation, you get comfortable with powerful forces that normally push and pull, limit you, or drive you, and so you can overcome them. On the other side, you have breath holding. When you hold your breath, you produce a whole different package of feelings and sensations and thoughts and emotions and chemistry. And if you can tolerate that, if you can relax in the presence of all those compelling, powerful feelings, you grow. You learn to relax in times and places when no one else can relax. You can maintain clarity when everybody else is getting pushed and pulled and they're getting lost in the chaos. So these exercises of growing our comfort range on the level of breathing, getting comfortable with nose breathing, mouth breathing, rapid breathing, slow breathing, high in the chest, low in the belly, powerful breathing, subtle breathing. If we grow our capacity on the level of breath, automatically our emotional capacity, psychological capacity, energy capacity, physiological capacity, they're all affected and they benefit. So, so I think the game in this ultimate potential, if it doesn't start and end, it at least includes getting more comfortable with a wider repertoire of
Mm-hmm.
breathing patterns and qualities and techniques. We're bound to grow when that happens.
You know what, Dan? I actually have an answer for this question as well. If I may, like, how do we level up human consciousness through breath, and what's its role? And I can give you a story in that sense. I mean, I did a bit of breath work through some apps I'm not going to name, right? But like super popular apps, there was nothing about expanding the breath to the cell. There was nothing about expanding the breath to, your higher self, or like in the universe, and expanding your consciousness in that sense.
Mhm. Well,
So
that's because you
how
haven't found my app out there. It's called Breath
exact
Tech. It's called Breath Tech.
perfect.
and
Guys, Google
and
Google it
yeah,
immediately. Immediately. But
breathtechApp.com. It's in the App Store. That's
But
exactly it. I did that too. I mean, I've made it my business. I've made it my life. If I heard about someone who was teaching breathing, I would travel to them. I'd be kissing their feet or breathing down their neck until I got whatever they got. And then, like a bee, I went to another flower and I
right,
sucked everything I could from that flower. And then I went to the next one until pretty soon people were sucking off of me. And I had somehow accumulated enough knowledge and wisdom that I was teaching stuff that nobody else was teaching. And so that's what my app is about. I started with the question, why do people come to breath work?
yeah,
And I've trained 250,000 people in the last 50 years. I've literally had my hand on that many people in 68 countries. It's not even an exaggeration. It's probably conservative at this point.
right,
And so even someone stupid would accumulate some knowledge and wisdom with that much time and that much stubborn dedication and focus,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so I laid out in my own mind and in this app why do I see people coming to breath work? They come for different reasons, right? And so in my app we have the 8 paths, and you come into the app. I give you what I call the cornerstones of breath work. I've studied every breathing school, every style, every teacher, every method. And for me, it's very clear what are the fundamentals that show in every breathing technique, in every school, no matter what you call it, no matter who's doing it. There are certain fundamentals, and there's only three. And so you master those fundamentals, and then you put them together in your own unique way to hack your way down your own path, you
I love
know?
that. I love that.
And so, and
That's
those three things are awareness. I call it my formula for transformation. It's the three pillars of breath mastery. It's the cornerstones of breath work. Awareness, the consciousness factor. And the message is wake up. So if you're going to pick a breathing technique, and there are thousands of techniques you can pick from, right? Pick one that's going to make you more conscious. Practice whatever breathing technique for you makes you more mindful, more aware, because that's the first cornerstone in breath work. And the more aware you are of each breath, the more conscious you are of your breathing, the more you're going to get from any breathing technique that you practice. So that's primary awareness, the consciousness factor. And the message is wake up. There's so much happening in us and around us, and we're sleeping. And if we wake up, we naturally have an advantage. We grow. The second principle, the second element in the formula in breath work is relaxation. It's the release factor. And the message is let go. We have to learn how to relax. Otherwise, life and breath cannot penetrate us. If we don't learn how to relax, all of the toxins and traumas are stuck in our body. So, relaxation, learning to release, learning to let go, that's the second part in the formula. And so I teach breath work as a way to let go of tension, let go of stress, let go of negative thoughts, let go of toxins, let go of fear, let go of anxiety. If you haven't learned how to let go of your breath, don't be surprised if you can't let go of pain. Don't be surprised if
mm,
fear, anxiety, or you can't
yep,
let go of thoughts that are going around your head. You haven't learned how to let go. Use
right.
your breath, master the skill of letting go with your breath, and you've nailed the second element of ingredient in the formula. And the third ingredient in the formula for transformation, the third pillar or cornerstone of breath work, is breathing itself. It's the energy factor.
Hmm.
Message is take charge, right? So I need to get a handle on that energy in the breath. It's not just about breathing air, it's about the ability to literally access life force, prana, chi,
Yeah,
ki,
yeah,
energy, whatever you want to call it, spirit. It lives in the breath. It's being carried in the breath. And anybody can huff and puff and breathe a lot of air,
Yeah.
but can you extract the energy from the breath? That's the ultimate skill in breath work. When you can breathe energy, then you've got a skill that will help you in every area of your life. And in order to develop that skill, you need to master awareness, relaxation, and breathing. And so, if you're going to pick a breathing exercise, pick one that helps you to become more conscious. Pick one that helps you to let go and release tension and stress more. And pick one that allows you to generate or access energy. And if you can find one breathing technique that does all three of those, you've got the secret sauce. You've got the key.
I love that. I love that. And that's it. That's the answer to the question. How do you use breathing to elevate humanity? This is it. This is the missing component, the energetic component to it. And you know what? I really love, and I'm so happy you're bringing this to the table and, making this the new standard. Like, we need more breathing instructors that add this component to it. And you're doing an amazing job at spreading the word. And
Well, it
something else
has
that
to
I,
come from the inside out. The problem is that many people, you look at a beautiful Tai Chi master and you
yeah,
look at the forms and the grace and the flow, and you try to copy their movements and and you learn it from the outside in. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. But something has to awaken within us. We have to get to that place that the master got to themselves that is responsible for their mastery. And the
yeah,
breath is like a thread. It will take us there. Meditation will take us there. Surrendering and letting go will take us there.
yeah, yeah. After a certain point, you allow the energy to breathe through you, and it's not
Yeah,
you doing the breathing. It's something else
there it is.
pulsating through you.
Yeah.
And something I love, I think it's something very common for people who have a religious upbringing, like myself. I was very religious. We hate dogma so much. And I love that you didn't say, hey, use my way because this is the way and the only way. You said, look, here are the principles. Find it or create it yourself. Do it yourself. You don't need this, you know, any type of nobody's thing, like you said, right? I love that
That's my
so much.
superpower, but that's also my biggest problem. You nailed it in the beginning. It's like I have no brand because unless you have something that you say, this is the way, it's the right way, first do this, then do this in this order. Now you got something people can measure and talk and identify and label, and it makes it easier to market. And so I think I've never
When I
really.
when I said I didn't mean your brand. I think the word breathwork I think is wrong for what you're doing. I don't think it's breathwork for what you're
Uh-huh.
doing specifically, because like I said, it's not work and it's not the breath. It's an amplification of energy, of power, of inner power. It's like tremendous empowerment. So that's what I meant. But yeah, what you're doing can be created a more suiting definition around it.
Well, I'm
But
a
you need breath work because
spokesperson.
everybody knows breath work.
Yeah,
So
and I see that as my kind of place. I'm a spokesperson for the breath. I don't care who you breathe with. I don't care
yeah,
which breathing technique you start with. I've never met a breathing technique I didn't like. I'm
yeah,
starting to meet breathing teachers that I don't feel comfortable promoting,
yeah.
and that's only recently. I couldn't even say that. 10 years ago, I could say I've never met a breath worker I didn't like because it attracted a certain kind of heart-centered people. But now it's attracting, everybody crazy people. And so, yeah.
I think then, like, if you were to talk about branding right now, your brand is being authentically you, giving less fucks about whatever people are saying are doing, and you just being genuine. That's rare. I think that's your brand.
Well, as the expression goes, be yourself. Everybody else is taken.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but there's a push for that in society and culture and religion too. be a certain way, act a certain way, speak a certain way, take a certain shape, take a certain form, follow a certain path. And oh God, I can't bear that. I'm so outside of that I'm lucky people even listen to me because I'm so unorthodox. I'm so irreverent. I'm so out of the box that I'm surprised that I've had the success I have because you got to be kind
I
of a rare breed to
mm,
even.
I think you're doing the exact thing, the exact example you mentioned with the Tai Chi master, because a lot of people do the moves, right? You don't need the moves. You're just being guided by the energy and you're doing, and that's exceptionally magnetic. I think you know, you don't need a system. You are the system. You are the move. You are, it's like that saying, the way is no way. That's you. That's why so many people are pulled to you, and they've always been.
Yeah, I think it's also when you do what you love and when you learn things and you actually embody them, you're not repeating them. Somebody else said, you read it in
Exactly.
the book and you got the right words and you frame. And some people are very good at that, actually. I mean, I, I did a session with Mark Devine, uh, Commander Mark, the Navy SEAL. He's written a bunch of
Right.
books. He's a magnificent guy anyway. And so I did this, he was practicing box breathing, which anybody listening, man, if you don't practice box breathing, learn it. It's powerful, it's useful, right? And he introduced it into the Navy SEAL world, right?
Right.
And so it's all about control. Control the inhale, do a controlled pause, control the exhale, do a controlled pause, control. Well, that's what's needed in his realm.
Right.
You got to control
Control.
the weapon. You got to control your physiology. You got to control your arousal. You got to control the enemy. You got to control stars
Right.
if you could, the weather if you could, and
Mm.
so when I introduced my approach to him, he had never approached breathing from this, let's say, the not controlling kind of approach.
Right.
And only to, and he's done so much work on himself. The guy has been in the fire. He doesn't have an ego that you would think that someone in his position would have a right to have. And so he's very open, and it only took him 5 minutes. All I had him do, and I got it from Tony Robbins the first time I worked with Tony Robbins. I noticed every time Tony took an inhale, Tony Robbins, I mean, he's like, "Ah."
Yeah.
And so I noticed every time he took an inhale, he tightened his jaw, and I could see his temples, dick a dick a dick. Some people do that when they're
Interesting.
chewing on their jaw, sort of, and you
Yeah.
see
Yeah. Yeah.
he had
Yeah.
that kind of habit. And when he breathed in with such passion and such power. And I could see him tightening his jaw. And I can share this because he shared it already publicly. But when I
Yeah.
asked him, well, what are we going to work on first? He said, my blood pressure. I need to do something with my blood pressure. I said, oh, fuck, that's a no brainer. Now we'll fix that today, guaranteed. So anyway, so what I realized is that was for him, it was a little thing, but if every time he breathed in, he tightened his jaw, created tension, he was constantly creating tension. So all I
Yeah.
had to do with him is say, look, when you inhale, I want you to just deliberately relax your jaw, let your tongue be sloppy and drool, and practice breathing through that relaxed, like sloppy, slack jaw kind of relaxation. And that was all it took. He lowered his blood pressure by 15 points. It's never gone back up. So he became like a real missionary for me. So I took that little lesson because he's a high performer, high achiever. I took that into my session with Mark Devine, and I basically had him focus on that relaxing aspect of breathing. Don't take the breath, receive the breath, right? Um,
Mm.
and and then we apply the principle of rhythm: active inhale, passive exhale, active inhale, passive exhale, one breath connected to the next, continuous circular rhythm. It's the rebirthing technique, actually. And letting go on every exhale, letting go on every exhale, and don't create any tension on the inhale, but manage a full inhale. That's kind of the instruction. And I coached him. It took him 5 minutes, and I saw the color of his skin change, the expression on his face. He started to light up. Then I saw these just tears just starting to flow. And
Wow.
then within 10 minutes, he went into this ecstatic state. It just lit me up. It lit up the room. He got up from his session. He was fucking radiant. I mean, his light filled the goddamn building. I was sitting in this bubble of light, powerful, tingling, electrical energy in his presence. It was powerful and beautiful. And he said, I got it. Dan, he said, I got it. He said, the control is about power and the relaxation is about peace. And that
Mm.
combination of peace and power, that's what makes for the most dangerous guy on the
Yeah.
battlefield. And I said, holy fuck, I've been teaching this for 50 years. Why didn't I think of that? He framed it perfectly. He said it better than I could ever have said it
Yeah.
because it came from that immediate experience. And I've been using that. I use his words ever since because I wish I could have thought of those words because it says exactly what I try to communicate.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this, if you want to support Dan, if you want to support the show, if you want to take your first steps into breath work or actually get a bit more familiar with Dan's work, he's actually offering 33% discount on his online Breathwork Fundamentals course. You'll find the link in the description below. Use the promo code to get the discount. Now let's continue. Yeah, it's like there's a saying like the best priests are the ones who saw war because they know the best of humanity and the worst of humanity, and that's kind of it. You know, like when you're in the army, you see the deepest, the yeah, all of that, the need for control, and then when you finally release it, yeah, it's always the warrior who has a mind of state of peace
Mm-hmm.
and is free of the outcome,
Yep.
also has the preparation, the self-control that is the most dangerous. But
And
that's also,
something can
it applies to
small,
everything.
yeah,
It applies
it's
to
every great,
CEOs, it
yep,
applies to sales, applies to
artists,
relationship.
everybody, medical people, yep. And you see that people who have accomplished something extraordinary, it's like a force takes them over. Even they confess that they weren't really doing it. They were just like trying to keep up with it. They were just kind of, managing it. They weren't
Yeah.
really doing it. And that's what I like to unlock in people or show them how to unlock that. But it shows up in each of us in a very unique way. So there's no way to can it or package it. What
Yeah,
works for
exactly.
me, I find my particular way, maybe breathing fast, maybe breathing slow, maybe holding my breath, and that doesn't work for other people. So somehow I have to be a midwife to allow people to kind of give birth to their own relationship to their life and energy so they can then manage it and wield it and so on.
That's the exact way I approach my coaching. To me, I failed as a coach if I gave you my system and it works for you.
Yeah.
I failed
Yep.
because what do you do if my system doesn't all of a sudden doesn't work? I've succeeded as a coach if I've awakened your power and you're the one creating the systems and you're creating whatever you want to be creating.
But
That's my
there's
measure
there's
of
this
success.
there's this illusion of security in following a path that some great person carved out. How can a million Buddhists be wrong? So like, what do I know? What do I think? There's this illusion of security in following someone else's path. I mean, look how great the person is that created the path. Look how many people believe it's the right path. What do I know? But if you're walking someone else's path, man, you're walking the wrong path. And
Yeah.
and I hope you realize that before you die, because what a waste of a life to have walked a path that wasn't your own, truly wasn't your own. And I'm afraid that a lot of people who live their life like that, their parents, their teachers, somebody put them, I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah,
we try to be good. We try to do what we're told. We try to do the right thing, and we turn to external authorities for that, and we get further and further away from listening to the voice of their
Yeah,
own spirit.
I think it was like part of like conditioning that we needed to go through as a collective. It was necessary to have, religion, school to put us in boxes and mold us in boxes, yes. But the way forward is not boxes, like moving forward. We're kind of tuning into that. It's spirals.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's spiraling phenomenon. I mean, we live in a spiral galaxy where there's
Yeah.
DNA is a spiral. We have turbinates in our nose that cause the air to spiral. There's something happening there, and energy likes to move in that way. So let's breathe in ways that help the energy to
Yeah.
move in that way, like a river. You don't see any straight rivers in the planet. You see curves and twists and turns in every river.
There's a super controversial interview right now with Terrence Howard and Joe Rogan. Terrence Howard is this Hollywood actor who has almost 100 patents under his name. Like, he invented a lot of shit, and that's exactly what he was saying. There's no straight lines in the universe. And one of the things that he was actually also talking about, like, oh, we're obsessed with creating these boxes, and we complain that there's a hurricane or whatever, and it levels the house. He says, why don't you make it in the shape of a mushroom? It's still gonna be there, right?
Yep.
Why do we need these boxes? And I feel like that's where we're moving towards. I feel like more people, us having more and more conversations like this where, yeah, sure, I use it too. Like, I promise a box, like, or a step-by-step whatever to get people through the door. But when we're actually sitting down, it's like, look, motherfucker, you're the box, you're the room, you're the whole thing,
Yeah.
right?
For many years, I was an avid missionary to try to get the medical and scientific world on board with breath work. I got
Mm,
laughed out of rooms. Oh, you new age woo woo hippie, la la blah blah. I couldn't get anywhere. But then what happened is the psychotherapy world began to pick up on breath work.
right.
And breath work actually ended up inside the box called psychology. And I suddenly woke up going, holy shit, I don't belong here. I mean, my lifestyle, I could get arrested if I was a psychologist, if I was a psychiatrist, and I was doing what I'm doing with my clients, I would be in fucking jail. And so I don't belong here. And it's like, so I helped put it in the box. And then I had to kind of like
Yeah,
I had to
get
ostracize
out.
from organizations and that I helped found. They kicked me out, which it's that's the story of my life.
Thank God they did. Thank God they did. Otherwise, you would have to play by the rules in many ways.
Oh, I'm terrible at that. I can. My father gave me. Thank God, my father. He said he noticed me trying to like in Catholic school do the right thing, go along, and he said, "Look, Dan, just think about it like a game. Okay, don't take it serious, but it's a real game, and you want to win. So just play it like a game." And you know what? And I did, and I won, but it made me feel even less about the people I were working with because they couldn't even see that I was playing a game. They were even happy that I was playing a game.
Hmm.
That was enough for them. The deep part of it, they didn't even care about. It was just going through the right motions, dressing the right way, talking the right way, behaving the right way. Those are all surface things for me. And I even confronted my principal in high school. She was a nun. I said, it sounds like you don't even care what's deeply true, that all you care about is how we look and how we act and how we talk and how we. And she said, yeah, that's it. Well, that was it. I left the Catholic Church. I mean, I energetically left it
Yeah.
earlier, but I saw, God, I can't live this superficial life. I just can't do it.
To me, it was like I remember like it was yesterday. I asked the because like in Romania we're like Greek Orthodox, so I asked like the priest because we had like a religion topic, let's say, like we had the priest come and teach religion to the, probably like in Catholic school, and I asked him like, why is the Greek Orthodox religion so special? And he's like, without even batting an eye, like it is the only religion taught by Jesus Christ himself. I'm like, okay, so like, aren't the Catholics saying the same thing? Like, like, and everybody else who has a different religion, they're all going to hell. What do you mean? Catholics are going to hell too because they're not Greek Orthodox? It's vice. What is this? And then I
We were
realized,
told,
wait a second, this is all marketing.
we were told to say if you weren't Catholic, you were going to hell,
Yeah.
and there was no ifs, ands, or buts, as they say. And there's also this whole heaven and hell thing. Oh my God! It's like, I, I remember one time the pastor came to our class. I was into, I don't know, I was 12, 11, 10, 11, 12 years old. And the priest started talking about, mortal sins. Which sins
Right.
get you into hell? In the Catholic Church, we have purgatory, like temporary hell.
Right.
and, and then, and they said that divorce was a mortal sin, and that
Of course.
anybody who got a divorce in the Catholic Church is going to hell. My mother divorced my father. And now here is this priest telling me that he wants me to go to heaven. Meanwhile, I'm supposed to be up in heaven knowing my mother's in hell? Fuck you. I'd rather be in hell with my mother than be in heaven with you, buddy.
Yeah.
And so, and I think I went too far in the other direction. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been deliberately going against what society and religion says how you should be. I mean, maybe I swung reactively a little too much in that direction. I've been finding the middle ground over the years, but I
Yeah.
definitely I checked out very early. And you and the horse you rode in on, dogma, rituals, religion, you're all fucking nuts. Now stay away from me.
I was I was terrified to swear when I was a kid. That was my thing. Like I don't swear as a kid. My mom was so proud. He doesn't swear. He never swears. But when I started, I fucking started.
Yeah. Hey, well, listen, the definition of a good child is some little child who sits still, very quiet, does what they're told. And that's what we all try to be. And
And doesn't
so
make a
we're lucky to
sound.
survive our early programming. We're lucky to come out of childhood alive, never mind fully alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we can't blame our parents because the only training parents have for parenthood is surviving childhood. And
No.
so,
That's 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 what I think. I think it was necessary for that age, for that stage of our evolution. It was absolutely necessary. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done it. But now a new language is emerging, a new understanding is emerging, and I think people need. I think the systematic approach is very important. It's a great entry level, right? Like just like with Tai Chi and even karate, right? I learned the moves first, and then I realized, wait a second, there's something else should move me, not me doing the punch, right?
okay.
It's excellent to get people started, the step by step whatever certainty that they need, but then after a certain point, when they're ready for more of themselves, more truth, they come to you, right? So
Yeah. Hey, every technique, I mean, techniques can help us, but at some point the technique itself gets in the way, you know.
yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
true of teachers. Many teachers can help us, but at some point the teacher is in the way. And even us, you said it beautifully, man. I've been repeating this everywhere that our current level of success is the greatest obstacle to more success. That's fucking
Yeah.
brilliant, well done, man. That is, man. I'm rewiring so much just digesting that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? It's that's really the biggest thing that holds back high performers, because you reach a certain level of success, you're afraid to try on different things because you're afraid they might fail and you might lose what
And
you've
there are
built.
rules against it. Many teachers and schools, you actually aren't allowed to do that. There are breathwork schools like that. Oh
Right.
man, save us, please, before it's too late.
What do you mean?
There are a lot of breathwork schools that are arising right now
Right.
that are very dogmatic. Exactly that. Don't
Oh,
breathe like this. Don't breathe like that. Don't practice this technique. Don't study with this person. Oh my God, that is so. I force my students find somebody who teaches the opposite thing I do and go and kiss their feet and learn what they learn and then come back to me and let's put the two things together. How about that? You know?
yeah. 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 That's the way I think. That's the way moving forward. I think people are waking up to that more and more. It's, no.
Yeah.
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 Ties back to the success thing, right? The thing you know stands in the way of what's actually possible.
Yeah.
The same with the systems, the need for certainty. Dan, we could definitely do this for hours and hours and hours. I would actually
I don't
love
have
to,
an
but I
off
don't want to.
button. You notice that? Yeah.
I love that, and I would actually, if like, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're busy. Um, is there anything else you feel would be relevant to share that maybe we haven't touched upon?
It's like Eckhart Tolle said something, totally said something really beautiful. He said, if you watch a child play, they don't get joy out of what they do, they put joy into what they do. And with
Mm,
everything I've learned and everything I practice, I can say if there's one thing, it's what do you bring to your breathwork practice, not what can you get out of it. And so bring the highest consciousness that you can, your heart's grandest desire, the biggest part of yourself, you know, a certain attitude, a certain quality of consciousness, a certain heart centered posture. I mean, how you approach breath work is how you approach life, other people, everything. And if you could find what's the highest approach, the highest quality approach that I could bring? It's a combination of love and strength and freedom and peace and power. It's called sort of all the spiritual principles meld into one. And if you have a word for that or a symbol for that or a way of expressing that, then you're going to get a lot out of breath work very, very fast. So it's like the quality of our consciousness that we bring, that's what determines what we get.
and I think there's also a bit of a maybe an element of giving less fucks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Make every breath a prayer. How about that? I mean, if you're a
Mm,
religious person, every religious teaching says, you have to be praying constantly. Well, you're breathing constantly, and every breath is a prayer if you're conscious about it. And whether you realize it or not, every breath is a blessing. I mean, it's a fucking miracle that we're alive. And if you could just remember that from time to time, how blessed, how fortunate, what a miracle it is that we can feel anything, that we can walk, that we can talk, that flowers exist. I mean, we can't forget this miraculous nature of existence itself. And so use your breath to remind yourself that every breath is a blessing. And if you're conscious about it, every breath can be a prayer. You're going to get a lot out of breathing with that attitude, I'll tell you.
love that. And I think it's safe to say that all religious people that were listening to this actually tuned out a while back. So,
Well, I'm surprised. I'm working in the Hasidic Jewish community, and I'm so surprised they keep inviting me back in because I'm so irreverent. I'm so vulgar. I'm so, you know, but they make the connections. All
yeah,
genuine religions have a connection to the breath, the word air, the word God, the word spirit, the word life. It's like one word in the ancient religions. And so
interesting.
they're ready for it. I feel like they're ready for it. I really do. And I do push some away, but the few that hang around, they share it with the rest of the tribe. So,
That is
yeah.
so cool. That is so cool. Beautiful. Guys, absolutely check out Dan's work in the description. I'll link everything. He's doing events all around the world. And if you are a CEO of a company and you want to increase the performance of your work, Dan is actually opening a new wing to his work where he can step in, give a powerful experience to your team, and it will inevitably lead to higher profits because a cohesive team is a profitable team at the end of the day. Beautiful. Dan, thank you so much. This was supposed to be 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I love this so much. I'd love to have like a 4-hour sit down with you.
Thank you, brother. I guess just chop it up, use whatever piece you think is useful. And
Oh,
I
I'm
appreciate
putting
it.
everything out there. No, I'm
Oh,
not
great.
Beautiful.
All right.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode. And you know what? Something that's really, really frustrating for me is this thing that I keep hearing both from clients, both from people who regularly check out the content. They usually say, hey, I don't understand why this content is not getting hundreds of thousands, millions of views, downloads, because it's so freaking good. And I gotta be honest, instead of feeling happy about it, elated, I do feel kind of frustrated. I mean, like, why isn't it getting out there a lot more? So, you know what? If you'd like to help out with this goal, the best thing you can do if you're watching the video right now is give it a like, maybe share it with a friend, or if you're listening to the podcast and you're enjoying this show, giving the podcast a rating either on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening to your podcasts is a tremendous help. And if you do help out, I just want you to know that I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.